r/legal advice. Sadarn 844 says, we are going to lose the house because my dad won't pay the mortgage. My dad has stopped paying the mortgage for the house and won't let my mom or me pay for it either. He was originally going to sell the house, but stopped because he didn't want to give my mom her share. He wants to lose the house to the bank, so my mom doesn't get anything. Her name isn't on loan or title for the house, but they are still married as far as I know. And money isn't the issue, my mom and I can still pay for it. He just doesn't want to, and he doesn't want her to have it or anything else. He told us we have 2 months before they kick us out. We don't know what to do. We don't want to lose the house. While Guy 2 says, what exactly happens if your mom attempts to pay the mortgage herself? Is she unable to call the bank and pay it? Most lenders don't care who pays, as long as they get paid. Impossible Letter 341 says, banker for 25 years. We will accept payment from anyone. We cannot provide any account information unless they are the borrower, but if you have the account number and payment information, you can make the payment. In fact, since the account is in collections, you should be able to get the amount to bring it current from the collector assigned to the loan. Brad 895 says, my stepdaughter has cancer. My wife and I are taking turns paying her mortgage with her BO father and stepmother. The bank gives no frick where the money comes from, as long as it keeps coming. Far Watercress 6658 says, 1. Go to bank. Make a mortgage payment. 2. Hire a good divorce lawyer. 3. Get divorced. Thoughtful Madeline says, your mom should immediately consult with a local family law attorney and begin the divorce process. Nanotsin says, that may take 6 months unless she tries to file an ex parte emergency. Thoughtful Madeline says, 6 months to complete the process, but she can get an immediate order forcing the husband to give her any info needed for her to make the mortgage payments in the meantime, and or forcing him to pay his share. Crafty Butterfly 974 says, she needs an attorney ASAP. Tell her to go to the bank and pay it. The bank doesn't care who the money comes from, as long as it gets paid. They won't foreclose and kick you out in 2 months. My neighbor stopped paying this and lived there for over a year before the bank put the eviction notice on the door. I was doing a rent to own and was 16 months in when the bank posted a notice. The owner hadn't paid them once the entire time I lived there. r/legal advice. Competitive Book 8831 says, I dropped off my dog at a board and train facility. He is now dead. I'm absolutely a wreck, but I'm hoping someone can help me with figuring out my next move. On August 16th I dropped my healthy dog off for a 3-week board and train to get some help with his anxiety and aggression. The trainer was sending us videos and giving us updates and everything seemed fine. Fast forward to August 21st, I received a call from my local pet hospital that my dog was dropped off dead. The facility never reached out to tell us that anything was even wrong. They also left us with the hospital bill. The hospital had to advocate for us to get them to pay the bill. They refused to refund us our money or even tell us what happened. We were able to speak to someone once, and his answer was stuff like this happens. I'm in shambles over this and don't know what to do from here. My fear is this happening to another dog. We vetted this place thoroughly. Researched them, looked into reviews, checked social media, checked if they had any prior issues, checked for licensing, and everything came back cleared. I never would have imagined I'd lose my dog. Can I sue? How do I report them? Does anyone know a lawyer or the process for this? I'm in Delaware. Beginning Spell 8624 says, I don't know much, but I do know I would 1000% sue them and report it, especially get a statement from the pet hospital that the poor baby was dropped off deceased. I'm so sorry this happened to you and your dog. A Sin Meant Brave 388 says, Op needs more information. They're acting shady as heck, so it seems they definitely did something, but Op needs to be able to prove to a court that the dog didn't just have a heart attack or something else largely out of their control. The fact that the dog was healthy when it was dropped off wouldn't really have any bearing. People can seem healthy too and then be dead a few moments later. If there's suspicion of foul play, and it sounds like there should be, Op might start by ordering a necropsy to determine the cause of death. Parlery 826 says, your first step is to request a necropsy from the hospital and to thoroughly look at your contract. Any legal course of action would be considerably easier with a cause of death, assuming there aren't very obvious injuries or obtainable footage showing what took place. Without this, and as sad as it is, your dog could have passed away from any number of things including natural causes of death that weren't put into action by outside negligence, much like people often do. I know this is a rough time, but have you gone in person to speak with someone in charge versus calling? Regardless of who is and isn't at fault, you certainly have a right to know what happened. You could also reach out to an attorney, but I recommend the necropsy first and foremost. Without that you might have a rough time finding someone willing to take your case. A personal recommendation: you could also try contacting your local animal welfare groups. They might have recommendations and more information for you. If none of these options are possible for you, you could file against them yourself in small claims court for the value of the dog and the fees you paid. This would at the very least put them in the hot seat. I'm so sorry for your loss, Opus. Direwolf says, what does the contract say? There should be a section pertaining to vet bills, injuries, death, etc. And most of the time it is explicitly stating that owner will pay all vet bills and not hold the company responsible. That said, if you could prove gross negligence, then a waiver wouldn't matter. Where is the dog's body now? I would have the hospital perform a thorough necropsy. I believe you can for a couple days or so after. That would be the absolute first step. Without one, your dog could have passed from anything technically, including a pre-existing condition, that simply wasn't caught. It's not unheard of for even humans to be seemingly healthy one day, gone the next. I definitely suggest reaching out to a lawyer, but I unfortunately do not have any specific recommendations. You can search on spa.org. I do think it would be hard to r/legal advice. Training Accident 2273 says, mother-in-law taking us to court for grandparent visitation. My miller's taking my husband and I to court. She filed the motion while we were on our honeymoon, so that was fun to come back to. We recently in the last year and a half shortened the amount of time our son, my stepson, is allowed to go over there due to me wanting to build a relationship with him, and he was over there every weekend from Friday after school until Monday, when he went back. Then about 4 months after the start of restricting the amount of hours she assaulted me. Since then it's been even less time. Our son, who's 9, has told us he is uncomfortable going over there because his grandmother watches him bath and sits on the toilet on video calls, as well as her boyfriend picked him up and almost hit his head on the ceiling while squeezing him. He also does not like to go over because she still put him in pull-ups, and he doesn't like to be treated like a baby. Before I entered the picture, he was over there quite often as my husband had a job that worked 6 AM to 7 PM and our son was in school, but not all day, so she does have grounds for a substantial relationship, but due to her actions in the last year or so, as well as allowing her boyfriend to put his hands on my husband as a teen and a young adult, we do not feel comfortable with him being over there. It was done out of necessity, but how do we explain any of that to the judge? I don't want to lose just because we can't afford a lawyer. As well, anyone know what to do if you can prove that emotion has lies in it that would make her case void? Apprehensive Sock 71 says, family law is very jurisdiction specific. In my state, grandparent visitation isn't really a thing except for something we call de facto custodianship. It is usually a very high standard to meet. The law generally assumes that parents have an exclusive right to be their child's guardian. My only advice here is to look at your state's grandparent visitation statutes and know that they might not explicitly be called that, and contact a legal aid society near you. Cheosafam Aditus says, focus only on the facts, along with any documentation of the incidences you described, pictures, text messages, etc. Write everything down, even if you don't have documentation, but be as impartial as possible. Get your stepson in with a good therapist to have a third party document his perception of his relationship with her and to offer their recommendations about the situation to the judge. Silent Experience 683 says, Kansas does have a law, KSA 23-3301, that addresses grandparent visitation rights, that says a court may grant reasonable visitation rights to the grandparent of a minor child if the court finds 1. Visitation rights would be in the child's best interests, and 2. A substantial relationship between the grandparent and the child has been established. The statute further states that a court may grant visitation to the parents of a deceased person or enforce visitation previously granted, even if the surviving parent remarries and the new spouse adopts the child. Since there is a legal basis for this, you should get a family law attorney with experience in child custody and grandparent visitation cases ASAP, at least a consultation. For right now, as well as looking for a lawyer, you should document everything. Collect all relevant text messages, emails, photos, and any records of incidents with dates. Write down detailed, factual, not opinions, notes about every single incident your stepson has reported. The assault on you, was there a police report? Injuries? And any other interactions that are concerning. Include any history of interactions where her boyfriend has put his hands on your husband, as well as the behavior towards your stepson, and any other history of legal issues or troubling behavior by the grandmother or her boyfriend. You will also want evidence about the current relationship between the grandmother and the child, like if the relationship has deteriorated or the child's well-being is at risk. And evidence of your positive relationship with the child and how reducing time with the grandmother has benefited the child. If you can prove there are lies in her motion, you should also gather evidence that directly contradicts those claims. This goes without saying, but zero contact with Mill from this point forward. If she reaches out to you, tell her that she can contact your lawyer. The outcome depends on several factors, including the strength of the existing relationship between the grandparent and the child, the evidence you can present to show that continued visitation is not in the child's best interests, for instance, the child's discomfort, safety concerns, and the judge's own subjective interpretation of what constitutes the best interests of the child. Kiwima says, I hope you reported her assaulting you, as that is valuable evidence as to why she is not suitable to have contact with the children. That's all for this video. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe.